yeah, I'm putting together a podcast. I'm still kind of
Mm.
finding my way and figuring out exactly what it's going to become. But the idea for it is that I'm a marketer. I work primarily with clinical practitioners, acupuncturists mostly, and
Okay.
there's common stories and common obstacles that they all face. There seems to be stages of growth that they all go through, and challenges that they all face. And in the United States, you I don't know how it is there, but we can't necessarily go to school, get a job. It's like you go to school, you start a business, and they
Yeah.
definitely don't prepare us to start a business. And so what I want to
I
address
can tell you, that's the same everywhere. I used to
yeah,
be head of the European ETCMA organization, well, head of research. So I talked to a lot of people in a lot of countries, and it's almost everywhere the same, with the exception maybe of China.
right. And I think most of the educational models are based on the Chinese model. So that's the gaping hole that never got addressed in terms of the training that we get. So I went to school for acupuncture as well. I never started a practice, but I became a marketer instead. It was a strange sequence of events in my life, but now I'm circling back and trying to give to the community that I started in. And yeah, anything that we can offer to these practitioners that are going through some of the common challenges, that they can action in their own businesses, any perspectives that can help them get through the difficulties. That's kind of what I'm after. And so, yeah, if you want to
That's
just
great.
jump straight in, we can get her going. Um,
Sure.
why don't you just start by introducing yourself? Give me a little bit of background.
Sure.
How you got to where you're at
How does it
now.
come to acupuncture? Right, right,
Yeah,
right. Um, I back in the day, this is 30 years ago, I studied chemistry at Leiden University. I discovered that wasn't for me. I didn't want to spend loads and loads of time in the laboratory with toxic chemicals. I thought, well, I want to do I was young, I was 19, 20. So I thought, well, what I want to do, I want to do something with nature and something with people. So chemistry is probably not the right path for me. One of the reasons I did start was I dreamt of space faring, going to Mars like Elon Musk is now, but then 30 years ago.
hmm
And there were some other reasons, but I stopped my chemistry studies, and I thought, well, I don't know where my life is going, where it should be going, but let's go as far away from what I was doing, studying chemistry, and maybe somewhere in the middle, I'll find my path. So first, let's explore. So I started doing martial arts, quite a few of them. I did meditation, qigong, retreats, workshops, energy healing. As far as outlandish as I could find and I could muster, I guess. I read a lot of books, did a lot of workshops for a couple of, maybe 10 years or so. I studied shiatsu, like I said, qigong, Zen meditation, other kinds of meditation, really a lot. Worked very hard, studied really hard. And when I was 30, 31, I said, okay, that's all well and good, but at certain points, playtime's over. Do I want to, you know, be keep doing this as a hobby and do, temp jobs and low-paying jobs, or, should I do something different? And if what should I be doing? So I thought, okay, what skills do I have? Well, I might be able to become something like a bodyguard, maybe. So I talked to people doing that job, and I said, well, that might be fun for a couple of months, maybe half a year or a year or so. And then, because it's not just as in the movies, right? Most of the time you're just driving somebody somewhere, and yes, you're protecting them, but it's not movie stuff, style shooting, whatever. So I thought, well, maybe not. I know a little bit about healing. Maybe that should be really my path. So I started that path. I had the shiatsu training, but I discovered that was not enough to really answer the questions that patients came with. So I started acupuncture school. I graduated acupuncture school. I was very happy with that. Although already in school, I was very critical, in the sense, like, I always, I really wanted to serve the people, do something useful to really for the people coming to me. Because I already had, maybe also because I had this background in qigong and shiatsu for years, was a very serious, studied that very seriously. So I was very aware, like, okay, it's nice and all if you know how to bang some needles in, but does that really help the person? You know, where are they at? Not so much what I can do, but what is their question? And that's a superficial question, like, oh, my shoulder hurts, and what's the real question? You know, but if you start with, in fact, you have some emotional trouble, for example. No, they come with a painful shoulder. You need to address the painful shoulder. So yeah. Anyway, already in acupuncture school, I was interested in somebody writing books and doing seminar called Kiiko Matsumoto. And one of my teacher actually discussed a lot from her books. Very practical, very hands-on, very goal-oriented, result-oriented, I should say. So I signed up for classes. There were people teaching a style. I found out she was teaching a style. And over the years, I attended all the workshops in Europe, read all the books, all the online stuff, all the videos at the time. I sent money to Australia to get really physical money to Australia to get DVDs. Eventually, Kiiko Matsumoto started recognizing my face, saying, "Why are you here in my class all the time? Why? Tell me. Go away." I kept showing up until she asked me to help her, give her a hand, do some Sebastian, and I became a regular. And right now, I'm assisting Kiiko Matsumoto when she comes to Europe, um, helping out in the class, translating when necessary, and just being a general PA, I guess. Um, I've had, my practice, it's my full-time job. And since the last 4 years or so, I'm running a one-day community clinic. Also because I'm, struggling with the idea, not everybody can afford enough acupuncture. So I just happened to live very close to the most socially economic disadvantaged neighborhood of the country. And I was lucky that the local neighborhood center, community center, offered me a room for free, where I could, practice. And, I don't pay rent there. They don't pay me, but, there's little cost except for my time. So I've been doing that for the last 4 years or so. I had somebody helping me out for 2 years, but this person moved. We get some donations from needles, for example. DocSafe gives us some needles. Some other aligned organizations donate some materials. And that's very rewarding, both in being able to see these people, as well as seeing a lot of people. I typically in the community clinic, I see between 15 and 30 patients in a day. So and we get students now there too that really like the amount of people they see there. They see that I would say 90% coming off the table, patients come off the table feel better. I'm not saying they're cured, obviously, but I'd say 80, well, maybe 80% of people at least feel some improvement. And if they come with, doesn't mean only pain, if they come with, stomach or whatever. And then of course it's, sometimes after a couple of treatments, I don't need to go. Sometimes, I cannot help everybody. I'm not claiming that, but it's very important for me to offer something tangible that people really immediately can recognize. Oh, that has value. Yeah, that's where I'm at. Out of 4 days, I'm working my private clinic. I used to work until a year ago. I used to work really 6 days a week, but I'm now more taking time off in the weekends because I need my rest too. And like I said, Kiiko Matsumoto will be coming next month to Europe, so that's another 10 days. I will be working with her. I do some teaching as well. I teach her style. I teach Mox Sebastian as well. In the past, from 2018 or 17 to 2020, I served both in the board of the European TCM Association, which is, we had talks with the NCCAOM, I think it's called in the United States, with Australians. So we were on that level. I was head of research. I was also head of science of the national organization because I really like to think critically in a way that, because I think critical questions, which is different from skeptical questions. A skeptical person will really try to often act in bad faith. But I think acting in good faith and be very critical with intention of getting better answers and improving the quality of our work and my personal work as well. That will help towards a better understanding, better clinical work, better outcomes, all that. Yeah, I guess that's a brief overview of who I am and what I do.
Okay. And if you could summarize let's see, how can I say this? Um, the motivations for people to get into acupuncture and some kind of holistic medicine is often connected to either their spirituality, their identity, a pursuit of something esoteric or energetic. But in order to kind of be able to navigate and move in spaces in the modern
Yeah.
world, in the Western world, certainly you have to also be scientific in your approach. If you could kind of summarize what you think that TCM has to offer that other medical modalities are lacking in, what is it that it does for people that, say your general practitioner can't address?
Okay, I'll give you several answers because I just been trained by Asian people for so long. The first answer is a lot because Western medicine cannot address, apart from emergency medicine, apart from, car accidents, apart from acute trauma. There, I think Western medicine really shines, partly because of the technology they have, but also, and I think that's hugely underestimated, because of the infrastructure. It's just having, within, I don't know, it depends, but here within 15 minutes, there will be an ambulance with blood, pain medications, trained people that stay calm. That's not technical advancement, but logistics. And I think it's hugely underestimated, the importance of logistics and, their contribution. You know, it doesn't really matter so much which modality you use. If you have trained people that don't panic, that will, if necessary, will monitor you for 24 hours a day, that will clean you properly, that know how to move a body without damaging it. You know, uh, Much of it isn't necessarily difficult, but it takes proper training, it takes patience, and it takes the resources to be able to provide that. And I think that's not to say anything bad about Western medicine. That's a huge accomplishment, but it's really based on the availability of huge amount of resources. The people need to be there. Um, and you need people to be morally trained, that they don't steal people's wallets, for example, right? That they will report to somebody higher up if something goes wrong. All this takes a huge amount of effort to have these institutions there. I think they're very valuable, but also very vulnerable, in the sense, again, that they're dependent on large amount of money and a whole infrastructure of people thinking about you know, um, how to clean the materials, for example, properly, how to establish um, sanitary things, how to get people to be able to work shifts 24 hours a day. That in itself is a huge accomplishment. And because TCM is outside of this framework generally here, we as a sole practitioner often feel like, oh, I need to provide something akin to a hospital, which is not only impossible, it's unfair. You know, a more fair comparison would be, okay, one acupuncturist somewhere against one medical specialist, say a neurologist, treating one patient. Okay. And of course, I highly respect these medical specialists, but I happen to have been many, many years ago at a certain first specialized first aid training course, and there was I don't remember his specialty, but he was a surgeon or something. And we were acting out some medical emergencies, and the specialist immediately he went on and said, "Oh, this and this." He said, "Oh, scalpel number 9." Nothing happened because he was not in operating theater. There wasn't a nurse to support him. There wasn't these machines that he used to, and he broke down to tears. And it's not his fault. He is being trained to be part of a huge machinery, with literal machines, with devices, backup systems, nurses, other people that, make things sterile. It's huge. And he just realized that, and we generally aren't, as acupuncturists. And so there is a thing we need to find our role being somewhat aligned, because this whole machinery is around us, whether we like it or not. Being separate, because we are not going to build this whole machinery, but we're not included either. Another answer is the amount of people. I've been practicing acupuncture now for 18 years, I guess. Yeah. And sorry, Chinese medicine, well, depending on how you define when I began it, but even some more years, the amount of usually people come to me saying, "Oh, I tried everything, and nothing helped." And then I ask them usually, "Okay, what has been done? Medications, operation, whatever." And obviously, if the things had helped, they wouldn't come to me. Generally, they first go to the GP or hospital or whatever, physio. So obviously, I see the people where it did not work. But still, Western medicine has some great tools for symptom relief. This is true. Pain medication is, when used correctly, is great. After, again, acute car accident, maybe some life-saving surgery, yeah, pain medication is great. But for chronic pain, not great. Addiction just doesn't work. Side effects, these are really real issues. And one of the big challenges for us is what tends to happen, and it's not only in medicine, but this happens in many places in society. There is a system in place, and then the problem gets defined by the solution that's already in place. So talk to anybody about alternative medicine. They'll say, yeah, alternative medicine is nice, but if you have appendicitis, you would be glad to have an operation. And I agree. Even though I have personally spoken to Asian people who did treat appendicitis, but that's beside the point. Car accident, yeah, please do not call me, right? No. But we then define medicine very narrowly in something like a battle against acute illness. And I'm not saying that's not valuable. It is. It's immensely valuable. But it would be very similar to defining, I don't know, managing a city with, yeah, but the army has got attack helicopters and, I don't know, artillery. Yeah, they do. Let's pray they never need to use them, especially not here in my city, right? And they have their role, and I'm really grateful for their service. But we should first of all try to not need their services, and also they're just not appropriate tool to combat kids shoplifting, for example. So I think there's a big challenge, and I think Western medicine has huge, and I mean huge gaps. Also, one huge problem in this society, our society, is the damage that's been done by medications, some operations. With again, I want to stress this, with good intentions. I do not think there are, well, we'll not say zero, but most doctors mean very well for the patients. I'm completely convinced by that. But if you train for many years, hard medical school, and you learn certain tools, those are the tools you will want to be using. And to really acknowledge, well, in many cases, like for example, if we make again the comparison with the army, well, you don't let an army general or something be the head of the police, because he's not trained for this job of sticky, difficult negotiations and unclear. So I think one of the tragedies of modern Western medicine is they have these very powerful tools that they should be wanting to use as least as possible. And that's not how the human mind works generally. If we have the tools, we want to apply them. And I personally, well, I maybe I would describe myself as religious, but I do not think Chinese medicine is religious. No, I think, or spiritual for that matter. No, I think as a very practical, hands-on way to deal with human illnesses. But basically, I guess because of my background training, um, martial arts is great training, really. And yes, by training in martial arts, you train your discipline, you train to control your emotions, you train your physical fitness. Those are all very good qualities. And, but in the end, if I punch you and I punch you on the nose, you are doing something wrong. Not me. You are doing something wrong. So if you cannot avert somebody punching you in the face, um, no matter how esoteric correct your stories may be, I'm not listening, And the other extreme, going, oh yes, but I'm going with my special training and boom, 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 and I hit you everywhere. And look, I'm right. No, that's the other extreme. I don't agree with that either. So I think looking at human illnesses as a terrain, as something where we nourish life rather than to destroy what we don't like. That in my opinion is a huge contribution of Chinese medicine. And I think I already said it, but I just want to stress it again. Yes, there is a time when destroying things that are not okay in the body is appropriate. Certain situations, certain diseases. Uh, but generally, we should really focus on nourishing life, and that has gotten really lost in modern medicine.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the that
That's a
the
rant, eh?
no, that's good. That was a good answer. I think that overall the primary differences are just what you said, that if you could summarize the allopathic model, it's to find the intruder and destroy it. If you could
Yes,
summarize the Eastern medicine model, it's to support life and
yes,
nurture it. And so those are two completely different biases. Um, and what's best in every situation is probably some combination of the two, or somewhere in the middle. So I think that was a very elegant way of talking about the motivation and the reason for what you do. My next question is about the business of acupuncture and how you navigate that. So,
yeah.
16 years is a long time in your practice. What would you say are the biggest challenges that you've had to contend with, and how have you been able to manage that?
Okay, one big challenge is that the patient is also a customer, and that's always, I find it still uncomfortable in healthcare that the patient is a customer, because people are ill, are generally short on time and short on money. Short on time because they are suffering or they would not be coming, and short of money, well, there is an infinite amount of money that you could throw towards your health, eating special foods, supplements, treatments, and you'll still die in the end. So there is and there are people who are predatory, who try to take advantage of a vulnerable group of people. I think it's important to acknowledge that this does exist. So we need to navigate this, and I'll be honest, I don't like it, but I have to, because like everywhere, it's a private practice. So one of the ways I navigated it is to be as honest as possible, really brutally honest. So if I say, okay, let's try 5 times and we evaluate, this is generally, my general guideline, then I will say after 5 times, okay, are you happy with the progress? And even though I could, squeeze out a few more, this is what I promise. So my integrity is, we made disagreements, and obviously the patient is allowed to opt out if they want. I know I'm not forcing anybody, but and if they ask me, often I get asked, can you treat my condition? What do you think? Um, I say, look, I promise you 2 things. First of all, I'll do my best, the best I can do, whatever that means, you know, and I don't say that, but in the back of my head, well, I took as many trainings as I could, and I read, so I think that's, after so many years, that's quite solid. And the second one, I promise you, I won't lie. You know, I may be mistaken, I may change my mind. I'm, human being as everybody else, but I will not tell you things I know that are wrong, that are not true. And for me, that's really that boils down to it. If I don't know, I will say, well, I don't know. Or if I say, well, I think it's this. I think it's worth giving it a try. But yeah, sometimes I'm mistaken, and most people like this is my finding. Not everybody. I do get people that really say, well, they don't usually don't say it, but I can see it in their face, and they don't make a new appointment, right? So, no, I really want to make sure, well, nobody, no therapist, no doctor can promise a cure. No medication for sure will help you. And, this is one of the things that's my issue. If I hear sometimes patients say, oh, well, this and this medication really for sure, the doctor told me it was going to help. I'm not going to get into an argument saying, well, he shouldn't say that because, nobody can promise it. But that does rub me the wrong way sometimes, personally. So being really honest about what I can offer. I try to be very explicit what I do. I do the acupuncture. I make things flow in the body. I try to relax the body, make increase blood flow. And it is my honest belief that this gives the body the best chance to do what it does best, which is heal itself. And if people ask me, well, what conditions can acupuncture treat? It's a good question. It's a valid question. And one of the answers I often give is, look, if your garden or your meadow, whatever, has brown spots because it's not, it's dryness or whatever, well, your best approach is to water them, to make things flow and then see how much comes up, and just watering your plants, it's amazing what it can do. Even things that look dry as a rock and not alive at all can really flourish if you water them a couple of times. But usually we'll have to do this a couple of times. I mean, you can get lucky and just water the plants once, but usually it will need a couple of times, and there will still be places. There's just no matter how you try, just nothing grows there. But you have to, you can give it a try, and I think was Eastern medicine, the acupuncture, like I practice it, is I don't like it when people have to pay up front, a huge amount of money with a lot of technology. Maybe it can help them, maybe not. But again, one of the ways I deal with this problem of people having pay out of pocket. So look, you're always free to leave. No problem if you think it doesn't work for you. If you think somebody else can help you, so there's escape, if you like, for me. But also, yeah, of course, it costs money for the patient, but it's not. Nobody has to go into debt to pay my bills. Really, no. And another thing that I do, I have my community clinic, which is extremely low cost. Just donations accepted. If for whatever reason people really, really, really down, I say, look, Fridays, you're welcome. But then it will be 4 people in the room. Will be assistants, will be very quick. But it's an option. So I won't kick you away. So that works for me right now. But I think we have to appreciate that, of course, it's partly my issues, but it's also partly that money is a nasty thing. It's, I need to pay my bills just like anybody else. I need to pay my rent, my, everything. And one of the reasons I try to live a very simple life, with not, it's what I prefer anyway, but also to have the freedom to really say, well, this is what I do. I don't tie myself up with, expensive luxuries because it frees me up to accept or I don't need to get it from my patients. But I do think it's in a way a problem of the modern world that we commodify human relationships because we monetize them. And I'm not sure if it's a modern problem or, if you read some of the older Chinese text, and it has been a problem for forever. But it is a problem, I think. And I think the problem starts when not so much in in exchanging money, but displacing human relationships with the money relationship only. You know, so if we say we have a relationship, a patient therapy, the doctor patient, therapist patient relationship, and money is part of that because, you know, I need to pay my bills, I need to eat, then okay, but still I care for you as a real person. You know, still, you know, even if your cancellation is a bit late, you know, sometimes I say, well, look, I'm sorry, I really booked your slots. I need to, I need you to still send you a bill. But I said, well, look, I understand your situation. Really, your child was ill. Da, 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 da. Okay, you know, as a human, I'll say this one's on me. But that does mean it needs to come from both ways, right? I mean, if people disrespecting me or whatever, so look, no, I need to draw a line. But I think it's the commodification that we we count everything in money. That's a huge part of the problem. And in older times, other ways of exchange were in addition to money, like respect, like you know, tradition, like you own something, like honor, you know. And in a more traditional, like a Middle East, you know, even in Europe, in a more medieval setting, many people would not, on a day-to-day basis, use money. You know, they would consume things, and it would be, you know, not like everything is given freely, but you know, out of we would construct these traditions and habits, and you know, maybe at the end of the year they would say, okay, I gave you so much, you gave me so much, you know, I'll give you this, and then things are settled. So I do think to really bring down everything to one parameter, to one measure, that is not good. It's not good for the soul. It's not good for society. And yeah, no, I'm just a sole practitioner. You know, I don't have any special powers or influence or part of any big organization. So I will have to deal with that in my level myself. But yeah, this is how I do it.
So this is a big thing, I think,
It is.
in the practice as a whole, is the monetary component of how we have to manage our businesses and navigate in this world is something that I think a lot of practitioners struggle with. I think that it feels antithetical in a lot of ways. I think that practitioners, uh, you know, there's a common view that money is the root of all evil, or that overemphasizing, you know, the financial component is something that doesn't agree with the value set of your kind of typical practitioner. And so that is something that I obviously focus my time on, is helping practitioners find prosperity, because it's my belief as somebody who does marketing that they're not antithetical, but our relationship with money is something that we have to adjust, because everything that you said is also true. Like we do live in a society that prioritizes finances above people. You know, you look at any corporation that is in medical spaces, and they are often willing to, you know, put out a product that doesn't have good efficacy, is dangerous, and they run a math equation essentially to determine whether or not they lose more money in holding the product back or putting it out there, and they're just dealing with the lawsuits because they'd still make a profit. So that exists, and that's absolutely something that doesn't align with the integrity of somebody that wants to heal people and you know, enrich the vitality of their lives and their health and all of those kinds of things. However, if I could, if I could address this a little bit, I think that
Sure, sure.
you know, that we have to have prosperity in order to produce prosperity for the people that we're engaging with. And so if we're in a state of, you know, fight or flight, survival, deficiency, worry about the financial state of either our practice or our lives, then what we have to, it's like the mother that is always giving to her family and her child and her husband and is never refilling her coffer, and she's running on empty and she has less to give. You know what I mean? It's something that we have to contend with because of the substrate of our society and how it operates. It's there and it needs to be managed. And in light of that, there are psychological and energetic components to how money affects us that also need to be addressed, that can be addressed in a holistic way. And so that's kind of where I'm coming from with this sort of stuff. I think that having the transactional nature of coming and getting a treatment and paying you money in exchange for it, that feels like so base compared to what you're actually trying to do with the needles and with the time and attention and energy that you're giving to your patients. But um, there's also an efficacy to pricing. We know this, right? Like if you if you go to the electronics store and you're looking at the $50 laptop and the $2,000 laptop, you know which one you want, not necessarily, like financially, you might say, well, $50 is a good deal, but your head says must be a piece of crap, right? It's the same in
Yep.
anything else. If there's a practitioner down the street that's charging $250 for a treatment and you're charging $69 for a treatment, then in their minds, one of them is the better practitioner, or they'd be charging the same amount. So we also know that even in the Western model, we have literally created a system of evaluating the efficacy of drugs around the placebo effect. Like the reason we have double-blind studies is because the placebo effect is so consistent that we can map it and determine that 15 to 30% of everything that we put out into the market is placebo effect. It's the sugar pills that are making people better because of their belief that they're going to get better. And so that applies to pricing too, is that there's a component to what you're doing that if you lower your costs too much, people will flip psychologically in their mind as this must not be working. And so we address those kinds of things too. So I I just wanted to offer that as food for
Yeah,
thought.
no,
I
you're
think
right.
I Yeah,
You are right. I mean, I took, because I did it for many years, I took several marketing classes, business classes. So you are right. Well, maybe one more thought that maybe useful for you too is more and more, actually, I've come to think, well, sometimes it can be uncomfortable to charge money. That is true. But there is an honesty in I'm providing something of value and you honor it. And
yeah,
it's very easy if there's no risk, and no financial risk and no rewards. To how do you actually know it's worth anything? And um, so again, one way I deal with it is to really say, well, there's some sacredness in it. I provide you a service and you honor it by paying me. If we have a whole insurance system here which doesn't typically not cover acupuncture, but I know some other treatment modalities, they just be signed off, lifelong, you can have this medication or this treatment. There's no incentive for anybody to evaluate is this actually good for this person, or maybe it's
right,
even harming them,
right,
and I think that's not a healthy mechanism either. I think if one of the problems I see in our society is there's not enough feedback loops from the person or organization doing something to is it actually accomplishing something positive? Again, I'm not, not against Western medicine, that would be silly, but there's a lot that is being done that is a very questionable use to the people actually receiving it. But the way it's structured, it just nobody's saying, well, let wait a minute, is this actually the best way of doing it? And in a model where you get paid cash by somebody actually saying, look, this is of value to me, there's a real spiritual honesty to me in that.
absolutely. Absolutely. I think, fundamentally it comes down to the ethics and the intentions of the two people coming together, making an
Yeah,
agreement, and what the parameters of that relationship and agreement are. And we can use money as something that is just, a utility, essentially, as value exchange to represent something that are more ideological. And and I think it's, as long as you can, those aren't even things that are fixed, right? Like you can enter into agreements, business arrangements, business agreements, where initially everybody came together because they're aligned on some motivation or some objective, and they're trying to accomplish something as a group. And then as you progress through the projects, things change, the dynamics between people change, the maybe you get some
yeah,
success and you've never had success before, and then all of a sudden you start to develop an ego as a function of it, and that changes the dynamic or whatever. There's so many ways that we could tell this story, but there's definitely a way to utilize money in terms of the energetics of prosperity that are both complementary and an effective tool that can also be a part of your treatment protocol, provided you have integrity and accountability.
yeah.
And so if you don't, then this is a very different conversation. But yeah, I'm definitely somebody who doesn't think that money is the root of all evil, but it certainly has been used to justify an insane amount of evil by people that kind of have a narcissistic relationship
Yeah,
with it. So
I fully agree. I fully agree.
yeah. All right. Well, John, I appreciate you talking to me. I think we've kind of gone all the way around the bend, and we've covered some very, at least to me, interesting subjects. I hope that anybody that is listening might glean something from this. And yeah, I I thank you. I'll let you know.
Very
I'm still,
welcome.
like I said, I'm stitching everything together. I'm kind of figuring out what this podcast is going to look like and where it's going to be.
Sure.
Once it's available, I'll contact you and let you know so you can have a chance to see it. And
Wonderful.
yeah, I
Well,
appreciate
I
you.
wish you all the best with your project, and I
Likewise.
hope it will be of a lot of use, a lot of benefit to many people.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it. All right.
All right.
Take take
See you
care.
later.
Bye.
Yes, sir.